guys. So it seems like Mondays, at least the last two in a row, are going to be fairly consistent where schedules suck and I have to do this video by myself. Once again, the schedules conflict. I got to get up early. Kevin Hawk works late, so I'm doing this by myself. We're talking about Raw. We're talking about the night after Clash of Champions. If you haven't seen our Clash of Champions review, you can check that out up in the playlist. We didn't have too many good things to say about it. And Raw definitely, it followed suit. We'll get into it. So right off the bat, we open up with a rematch for the U.S. Championship from last night. Roman Reigns now defending against Rusev, and Rusev doesn't even get an entrance. We just go straight to Roman Reigns. He comes down. They have a different match, at least from last night, where the focus was apparently on Roman Reigns' back. But this ends up being wrestled to a double countout. So I don't know why we needed this. I don't know why it needed to be a half an hour long to just go to a double countout, but it did. Roman Reigns is still champion, obviously, but this is going to lead... I'm hoping this doesn't mean that they're going to end up being in like a Hell in a Cell. I'm hoping that Hell in a Cell only has one of those matches. Granted, they'll probably have two, because that's been the thing for as long as Hell in a Cell has been around. So, I don't know. There wasn't anything grandiose about this, except at the end they ended up... Rusev was beating on Roman Reigns with a chair. Roman ended up hitting a spear, grabbing the chair. The crowd was surprisingly behind him until he didn't hit Rusev. So then he did hit Rusev and he got cheered. Cincinnati, you guys consistently become an issue. At least one more time on this show. Get your shit straight. So, yeah, Roman Reigns, Rusev going to a double countout. So, speaking of double decisions that just didn't go anywhere, we have Mick Foley come out and talk about what's going to happen now that Cesaro and Sheamus, the best of 7, went to a draw. He brings both the guys out. Both of them are in their gear, like, expecting to wrestle. And Mick Foley says, hey, I saw you guys fight last night, and Sheamus keeps trying to quote him, saying that Mick Foley, when making the best of 7, said it's the person who is the most physically dominant throughout the best of 7 series will be the winner and get a championship opportunity. Obviously, he's trying to focus himself as being the winner, but Cesaro's saying, well, no, I was just as dominant. I was more dominant. I was the one that was standing in this ring last night telling you to come back, and you're walking to the back, and Sheamus is like, no, I'm being pulled away by 4 guys. They wouldn't let me come back, and so Mick Foley stops them. And here's where you're expecting, okay, we're gonna make the one more final match. There has to be a winner at Hell in a Cell, or next week in Los Angeles, or I don't know, something like that. Instead, and I wish Kevin Hawk was here to talk about this, because I'm sure he loves this. I'm sure Thomas Wolfe loves this as well. He decides that, you know what, it was a draw. You guys were both physically dominant, so you guys are both going to share the championship opportunity. Now, the first thing that pops into my head is, okay, triple threat. Maybe they're going to get added to Reigns versus Rusev, make it a fatal 4-way for the U.S. title, something like that. No, even better. We're going to make Cesaro and Sheamus a tag team, and they're going to fight the winners of the next match, which is another rematch. We're having the Club versus the New Day. Okay. I am totally okay with Sheamus and Cesaro being a tag team. I have no problems with that whatsoever. I have a problem with it coming out of a best of 7 where they're supposed to be, one of them is supposed to be better. Granted, this continues into a match that they... I'll skip to that match real quick. We did end up having a moment where they were fighting in the locker room, and Mick Foley tried to get them on the same page, saying, "Hey, I've got you your first match. You guys are going to work as a tag team tonight." And so they end up going against a couple of jobbers. Oh, what were their names? They were... I can't even find it. Nick Cutler and Willis Williams. Yeah, jobbers like nobody's business. So, it became a game of one-upsmanship. So, I get, the idea is, they're going to keep one-upping each other, trying to see, who's more physically dominant. And that's eventually probably going to win them the tag team titles, because they're both extremely physical guys. But I feel like that's such a... I don't know. Like, I felt like this should have come out of, like, a mutual respect between the two of them. Or, you don't... Like, Mick Foley forcing them to be a tag team, I don't understand why that's the idea they're going with. We'll let it play out and see what happens, but currently I'm not too fond of it. But they end up picking up the win. Cesaro's getting ready to go for the neutralizer on one of them. I think it was Willis, or whichever one it was. Sheamus ends up getting in, bro kicking the other one, which distracts Cesaro. Cesaro lets go of the other guy, so Sheamus bro kicks him. So the only thing that Cesaro's able to do is get the pinfall. And so, Sheamus is like, oh, yeah, you wouldn't have won without me. So that's going to be the reoccurring theme. So now they are going to get a tag team title match eventually against the winners of another tag team title match where the New Day takes on the Club. This was very much the same from last night, or from Clash of Champions. Yeah, not a whole lot different here, except, the New Day was a little bit more on fire. They were ready for what the Club was going to do. They still had some great near falls. I did think the Club was going to win because they ended up hitting the Magic Killer on Big E. But Kofi comes out of nowhere. He ended up getting rammed into the stairs by Gallows. He gets in, he breaks up the pin, low bridges Gallows, and then Gallows ends up being out. Big E's taken out from the Magic Killer, so it's just Kofi and Anderson, and Kofi hits Trouble in Paradise and pins Carl Anderson, and Kofi is covered in blood. So apparently he went face first into the stairs and busted himself open, and they remain tag team champions. So now you've just totally killed the Club 2 nights in a row. This is very bad for them. They're now becoming less relevant than the Shining Stars, because the Shining Stars actually have 2 wins over Enzo and Cass. So apparently somewhere down the line we're going to get the New Day versus Cesaro and Sheamus. And if Cesaro and Sheamus take the tag titles off of the New Day as a throw-together team, that's not okay. Because you have 2 genuine single stars who you can put in singles matches, Cesaro of which who deserves a push to the fucking moon, and not as a tag team unless he's with Tyson Kidd, which isn't going to happen. And you're ruining a perfectly good tag team that could easily be a top heel tag team because of the fact that they're from the Bullet Club. Don't give it to a throw-together team. Don't do it. Don't do it. We find out that Seth Rollins was injured at Clash of Champions. Kevin Owens went for... he ended up doing a rib breaker off of the second rope, dropped Seth across his knee, and actually damaged some of his ribs. So he's not cleared to compete for a couple of weeks, but he is expected to be at the show. We'll talk about that a little later. Bayley had an enhancement match where she defeated a woman named Anna Fields. Okay. Mick confronted Stephanie about whether or not she intended on the referee to go out there just in time to make the pinfall for Kevin Owens, and Stephanie had like everything to say back at Mick. She had a really good bit where she's like, no, see, you're the general manager. It's your responsibility to make sure that matches are running smoothly. That is your job. You were too busy checking on Sheamus and Cesaro, and that's great that you were worried about them, but I didn't hire you for your medical expertise. I hired you for your brain. I hired you for your business acumen. You are here to make sure that everything is running smoothly. I hired doctors to take care of Sheamus and Cesaro, so I happened to run out there, send a referee. It just worked out in Kevin Owens' favor, and he's trying to use the footage that they got of Triple H picking her up from the show, and him going, "Oh, how was the show?" And she's like, "Oh, it went great." And so, Mick Foley's trying to connect dots that like she's totally in Kevin Owens' corner, which will probably end up being the end game. But I really liked this bit from Stephanie. Stephanie is way too good at her character, and just as me and my friend were talking about during the show, I would hate to be their children, because when mom's mad, your only other option is to go to Triple H, and then just don't call crazy Uncle Vince or crazy Grandpa Vince, because then things get really weird. We had a tag team match in the Cruiserweight division. This was really cool. Fun to see Drew Gulak on Raw. Didn't expect him to show up. I'm thinking it's a one-off because I'm pretty sure he's not signed. But he teamed with Lince Dorado to take on Rich Swann and Cedric Alexander. This match was fantastic. All four of these guys just went balls to the wall. Extremely exciting match to watch. It was Lindsay's first time on Monday Night Raw, Gulak's first time on Monday Night Raw, so it was just, Gulak was definitely an interesting choice to be in this, especially with three guys that through the Cruiserweight Classic were so known for their quick, fast-paced, high-flying. Granted, I know what Drew Gulak is capable of because I've seen him work in Chikara, so I know that he's able to do that. It's just a very interesting extra couple guys to put him in, because he was very much the heavy hitter and the technical worker of the group. Still a fantastic match. Lindsay ends up getting hit with a lumbar check from Cedric Alexander and lands on his neck and immediately bails out of the ring. Cedric ends up getting taken out by Drew Gulak, leaving Gulak to get hit with the Rich Kick, which is that straight back kick that Rich Swann does right to Gulak's face. He then hits the roll into the bridging jackknife pin, and Cedric Alexander and Rich Swann pick up the tag team win. Speaking of more Cruiserweight Classic, this was T.J. Perkins' debut on Monday Night Raw. This is the first time he's been on Monday Night Raw since winning the championship. He's doing an interview which is quickly interrupted by Brian Kendrick. Kendrick saying, I hope are you enjoying your dream? Is your dream coming true? Because I want you to realize that you owe me for your career. Because if you didn't hear him talking at Clash of Champions, Brian Kendrick actually used to pick up T.J. Perkins to go to training sessions. So, Kendrick feels like, he's owed a lot for helping TJP get to where he is now. And he says, I want you to enjoy this time. Enjoy your match tonight. Because the next time you and I face each other, that's when you're going to wake up from this dream. And we find out that there is going to be a rematch next week for the Cruiserweight Championship. Okay. I mean, it's cool. It's cool that we're going to get a title match on Raw, but Kendrick lost. And now all of a sudden TJP's like, we'll do a rematch right away. I guess he was a little peeved about the headbutt, but I feel like it would have taken maybe a little bit more convincing, but it's wrestling, so. Should be interesting to see what they end up doing next week for that championship match, though. And speaking of championship matches, we're just segueing ourselves right through this. Charlotte comes out, talks about how great she is for winning the triple threat at Clash of Champions. She's quickly interrupted by Sasha. Sasha saying, hey, you didn't pin me. And that means that I'm still guaranteed my one-on-one rematch since she didn't get it after SummerSlam. And they go back and forth. Charlotte's got some really bad insults that she tries to throw at Sasha, and it's just like, you need to quiet. Just don't say anything. And so yeah, this ends up turning into a one-on-one rematch next week in Los Angeles. I know why they're doing this. Because they're going to be like, the big thing going into next week is going to be, hey, remember the last time that the Raw Women's Championship was defended on Monday Night Raw, it was actually won by Sasha Banks from Charlotte. So they're really going to push that. Dana Brooke is going to get involved and screw over Sasha, or maybe someone else on the roster will get involved. More than likely, just Dana Brooke. And then that'll lead to, the final confrontation where Sasha will get a rematch, she'll win at Hell in a Cell, and then she'll continue on. And then Bayley's going to work herself back up, and then we'll have Sasha versus Bayley probably the end of this year, maybe whatever pay-per-views they decide to do in like January and February, just before WrestleMania. Alright, then we find out that Seth Rollins has indeed arrived, and he starts heading towards the ring. Mick is like, hey, you need to stop, because Chris Jericho's doing the highlight reel with Kevin Owens, so Rollins is like, that's where I'm going, I can't stand back here and let them, let Kevin Owens complain, or brag about what he did to me, how he hurt me, and I can't do that, I need to go out there, I need to face him, and Mick keeps trying to tell him not to do it. And Seth kind of realizes that what's coming out of Mick's mouth is what Stephanie told him. That's something I forgot to mention. Is Stephanie's like, hey, Seth Rollins is going to be here, and his first thing is he's going to go after Kevin Owens, so you need to make sure he doesn't do that. And so Mick's saying this to Seth, and Seth can see right through it. So, moving on, we have TJ Perkins' debut, and he goes against Tony Nese. And here's what I'll say, fuck you, Cincinnati, Ohio, because this match was by far the most entertaining match on the entire night. And you chant CM Punk and Randy Savage during it? Fuck you! Like, we're supposed to be excited for the Cruiserweight division coming here. We already had a tag team match that was awesome. This match was awesome. Fucking Tony Nese is so good. I hope he sticks around. He was one of... I didn't necessarily want him to win CWC, but I was good to see him. I was happy to see him in it because he's fucking good. And him and TJ Perkins, they mesh so well together. And right off the bat, I think he made probably a better first impression than a lot of the Cruiserweight guys have on the roster. Maybe it's because he's a one-off, like, hey, I'm just kind of here as a name that was in the tournament, but he was fucking fantastic. He did his inside out moonsault thing to the outside. He was just hitting these massive clotheslines on TJ Perkins. Him and TJ had fan-fucking-tastic chemistry, and the crowd, fucking, what is wrong with you? I hate wrestling fans. Wrestling fans are the worst fucking people on the planet. Yes, that includes myself, because I contradict myself. But right now I'm talking about the fans in Cincinnati, Ohio, and anyone else that's going to discredit the fact that match was fucking fantastic. TJ Perkins ended up picking up the win, hitting the Benadryller, and then locking in the knee bar and making Tony Nese tap out. I want to see Tony Nese stick around. I'm enjoying the Cruiserweight division so far. This match felt like they were trying to go above the hey, tone it down kind of match, because they fucking killed it. They had some great stuff happening. They probably could have done more, but they didn't need to. I think what they did was just enough. And here's where I thought that was our main event match, because then we've still got a half an hour left of Raw, and we go into the highlight reel with Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens, which, for the most part, is exactly what you expect it to be. They could have flipped Raw around and had this be the opening segment and have Rusev and Roman Reigns be the main event, and it would have made sense compared to most Monday Night Raws. But it was, Jericho talking about the list of Jericho. He addresses the fact that apparently him and Kevin Owens are going to have some sort of face-off with Ashton Kutcher and Danny Masterson next week in Los Angeles. I like Kutcher and Masterson, but I don't need to see celebrities fighting wrestlers at all. Like Shaq going to WrestleMania to face Big Show. Don't really care. But it's going to happen. And that was kind of the main focus of the beginning of this. And then he brings out Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens talks about how he injured Seth Rollins again, proved that he's the man, he's the champion, all this blah, blah, blah. And then Rollins tries to come down, and a bunch of security guys stop him, and Mick and Finlay are trying to keep him back, saying, hey, you can't do this. Owens is yapping at him from the ring. Seth Rollins ends up getting taken to the back. And then, for some reason, it's like, hey, remember that match at SummerSlam where Enzo and Cass went against Jericho and Owens? Let's do that again, but for the main event of Raw, like, almost a month and a half later. Okay. Enzo and Cass come out. They did have a funny bit, like Jericho, Jericho's list. So Cass says, what are you, Santa Claus? And Jericho's like, maybe I am Santa Claus. And, maybe I'll come out there and I'll sit on your lap. And then the whole crowd went, wait, what? And Owens went, wait, what? And then Cass kept trying to get Jericho to repeat himself. And he's like, no, I said I was going to punch you in the face. He's like, no, I'm pretty sure you said you were going to come out and sit on my lap. And Santa doesn't sit on... Regardless, that doesn't mean anything. So it was a funny little bit. And Owens was like, I'll punch you in the face, but I don't want to because we don't have a match. And they're like, actually we do, because Mick Foley just told us we do. So for some reason we decided to end the night on Enzo and Cass versus Owens and Jericho, even though Enzo and Cass are supposed to be doing a thing with the Shining Stars. The Shining Stars weren't even on the show. And... Raw, you confused me. I don't understand. Match is fine. Nothing out of the ordinary. Solid, good tag team match. Enzo is doing a lot more in ring, which I'm sure impresses Kevin Hawk. He had a good little run around with Jericho towards the beginning of the match, and eventually we get to a point where they're setting up to hit the Air Enzo on Owens. They're about to hit it on Owens, and Jericho comes in and slaps Cass, and Cass is like, what do you think you're doing? And so he ends up throwing Jericho over the top rope, boots him, but the boot actually carries Cass over, so him and Jericho go tumbling to the outside. Enzo hits the DDG on Kevin Owens, which Kevin Owens kicks out of. That's his jumping DDT from the middle rope. He's done it like once, and they're like, oh, that's the DDG. So that's what that is if you don't know. And Enzo's like, oh, shit, okay, he kicked out, so he starts kind of fighting back a little bit. Owens then ends up turning him inside out with a clothesline, picks him up, hits a regular, like, just real stiff powerbomb. Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho pick up the win, and there's no Seth Rollins to come back, which is what I expected and probably would have excited the fans. I haven't seen anything post-Raw, so maybe that's already happened on... Maybe that's on YouTube, maybe that's on WWE.com, I don't know. But it probably should have happened on Raw. Because that's kind of where that's where your main stuff needs to happen. You can't have a lot of important stuff happen on social media, because people don't always follow it on social media. And I get that's why you're trying to get them to follow it, but people are just going to not understand and complain about your shows when you have like 7 or 8 different outlets where they have to find this information. and it gets very convoluted very fast, and it's, people can't sit there on their phones and their tablets and stuff like people have to work, people have to go to sleep, people have stuff that happens, and sure, we spend a ton of time on these things, but we can't watch YouTube and Facebook and check on Twitter for updates, and we can't go on the network for what happened post-Raw or beginning of Raw, and we can't watch all 3 fucking hours of Raw and expect us to do all the other 4 or 5 things that you want us to do. So keep your main shit on Monday Night Raw. If you have something extra, like, the Danny Masterson and Ashton Kutcher video, put that on YouTube. So that way it's like, oh, hey, this is something that's happening. If you want to check out the full thing, go over to YouTube and check it out. That way people can be like, oh yeah, I want to see what that whole thing is. Anyway, I don't run social media. I run social media for the Wrestling Rundown, but that's about it. So that's it for my Raw review. It didn't really... it wasn't any better than Clash of Champions. It's kind of on the same par. Like, nothing was awful, but there was a lot of things that made me go, why are you doing it that way? But I'll say, I'm excited for SmackDown, because I liked SmackDown so much better. I'll probably continue to wear as much blue and or SmackDown related stuff, because it's currently my favorite. It's the A-list show as far as WWE is concerned. So thanks for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Click all the links down in the description. They'll send you to all of our social medias. There's also the SoundCloud link. For those of you that are watching the video, you can listen to videos like this, our indie news, SmackDown Rundown, and our midweek wrap-up, all in podcast form, so that way you're not watching a video while you're driving, because that's illegal. Stop doing that shit. Listen to us podcast style. For those of you that are listening to the podcast, thank you very much. But come over here to the YouTube, because you get extra videos. We don't do everything podcast style. We have our predictions and our reviews when pay-per-views happen, which is going to be happening a lot more often. We have our top 5, which should be happening next week, since we'll be getting into October. We've got some extra, when CWC is around, or when stuff, special things happen. We do extra videos over here on the YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, you'll want to check out our other channel, Reasonable Wrestling Fans. That's our YouTubier side, where we don't just sit here on the couch reviewing wrestling. We actually do YouTubier stuff. We do unboxings. We do reaction videos, which, Lucas, we're getting to it sometime this week. We will be having Kevin Hawk sit down and watch Delete or Decay from TNA. I've already seen it. I don't remember a lot from it, so you'll probably just be getting reactions from me as well. But Lucas, he did his end of the deal, so Kevin Hawk will be doing that. You'll also get to see our punishment videos. You can see me getting hit with a kendo stick after I lost SummerSlam, and you can also see Kevin Hawk taking a shot, a nasty shot combination that I made because he lost Backlash. So, coming up soon, you'll get to see me drink a nasty smoothie because I lost Clash of Champions. If you want to check out our Clash of Champions review, it's up there in the playlist, along with all the other videos that will be coming out this week. The Reasonable Wrestling Fans is down in the description. Click that link, subscribe over there as well. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you at whatever video you decide to watch next. Fuck you, Cincinnati.